The great teacher who walked out of the desert, the great teacher who sat under the tree, the great teacher who stood in the river, the great teacher who came down the mountain, the great teacher who came out of the cave. Each of those masters had an encounter. They had an encounter with the unspeakable. They had an encounter with pure, raw being. And that encounter was unspeakable. But guess what? When we have that encounter, we gotta go tell somebody. They had to go tell somebody. They had to, you can't tell anybody. They had to go tell somebody. You can't tell anybody. It's unspeakable. And so each of those great masters, and I can hear some of you now saying, weren't those all guys? And for about 1,000 different, not very good reasons, yes, they were all guys. And part of why some of you are sitting here today is because the world today needs to hear this message again, needs to encounter this message again. And the world needs to encounter that message in a feminine voice. And today is maybe your day to figure out how that begins to happen. So each of these great teachers had an encounter that they had to share. And to do so, they had to create a myth. They had to create a story. They had to try to communicate some art that people could look through to connect with that which they had connected with. So Amanda knew she had to climb the mountain. She didn't necessarily know why she had to she had to climb the mountain. She was compelled to climb the mountain. She no more knew why she had to climb the mountain than some of us understand why we keep showing up here. Amanda had to climb, she climbed the mountain. Amanda knew she had to personally, solitarily explore the peak of being. She went up the mountain. She encountered raw, pure being. And on her way down the mountain, her eyes were full of fire. Her hands were full of fire. She was ecstatic. She was full of mystery and awe. And she couldn't speak. She was dumbstruck. She couldn't even talk to herself about her encounter with the unspeakable. She could not grasp the one who cannot be grasped, but she was totally grasped by that experience. Amanda came down the mountain, and there at the bottom of the mountain were her friends and some of her followers. They say, hey, Amanda, what happened up there? Well, Amanda just sort of looked right through them, like they weren't there. Hey, Amanda, what'd you see up there? Well, after some uncomfortable moments, Amanda was compelled to say something. So she told them a story. She gave them a little myth and tried to communicate with her friends and followers. And one or two of them, the good students, they sort of got it. They sort of got, this story, this myth is compelling me to, I got to go climb the mountain to encounter the peak of being myself. But most of them were just really happy now because they had a story. They had a story, and they were happy, and they took that story, that art, that something real, and this is something to believe in. I'm done now. And in fact, these are the ones, as is the case, that ran back to the village to then begin ordering everything based on their interpretations of the story that Amanda had told them when she got off the mountain, not having a clue that it pointed to something deeper. And you know what? This gets repeated and repeated again and again and again and again and again and again in human history as it's being repeated today. And we will not transform this world until there is a revolution in consciousness from refunctioning our highest function, which can then feed our second highest function, which then can allow our third highest function, which is the exercise of politics and economics and how we manage the environment of this planet and human morality and education. There will not be a revolution, a transformation of our third highest function until the other two happen.